Hello, everybody. Good morning from Victoria. It's just about lunchtime here. Well, hello from Cape Breton, too. I'm hoping it's sunny and warm on both coasts. Hello, Megan. Hi, Maya from Ottawa. Hello, Annette. Rain just stopped. Okay. Well, maybe the sun will come out. Nice and warm. I'm glad to hear that, Brian. It is very sunny here, which is nice because it's been really cold the last couple of days. Hi, Tyler. We'll get started at 12 o'clock. Okay. And my grass nowhere near being needing cutting. Welcome, Brandon. Nice to see you, or nice to see your writing anyways. Hi, Jessica. Okay, we did that on Monday or Tuesday, I think. I went out for my walk in the morning and it was -9 outside. It was awful. I know. But it's nicer today. Hi, Melissa. Yes, I still wear toque and mitts. All right, it's 12 o'clock, so my time, so we're going to get started. I know there's more people registered than actually currently on the line. Welcome from Comox. But I would like to get started just so that we can be finished in good time. So welcome, my name's Diane Bryan. I am the Health Promotion Manager at 17 Wing Winnipeg, and for the next just about an hour, we're going to spend some time looking at time management and how can we work through distractions, especially those distractions that maybe are different now because we're working at home and not in the office. But lots of the tools that we're going to go over will translate back into the office for when we do actually go to the office. So I'm so glad that you were all able to join me today. We will be using the chat box for discussion. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to write them down in the chat box. I will not be enabling the microphones or cameras at all. And I will actually be turning off my camera shortly so that we can focus on the PowerPoint that's up there. You don't need to be looking at my face and trying to figure out what the heck is written on the tarp behind me, because even I'm not quite sure. All right, so let's get started. So this is a standard slide that we show at the beginning of every presentation. So just to know that the presentation that you're about to view is the intellectual property of the Department of National Defense. So please do not reproduce or retransmit any of the slides contained in this presentation, as that is strictly forbidden. Some of the topics that we discuss may be of a sensitive nature or maybe not appropriate for young children. As most of you are working from home, you may have young children around you, so we please ask for some parental discretion. Please understand as well that the stories that people tell are theirs to tell, and anything that is shared by participants in this webinar is not to be discussed outside this webinar. So I'm going to invoke the Vegas rule. So what happens on the webinar stays on the webinar. And this webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing later on CAF Connection. I believe they're working on developing a PSP YouTube channel. where these will be all housed. So although I would love to have active participation by everyone, you can simply follow along without having to use the chat box if you prefer. All right. So now I'm going to disappear and we're going to get started with a poll. So what I'd like to know is, what is your affiliation to the community? So are you a serving member? Are you a veteran, a family member, maybe a civilian employee working for D&D or CFMWS, or perhaps an other? This is awesome. Lots of serving members, a few veterans, some family members, some D&D employees. That's great. Nice variety of people online. That's very, very cool. Okay, so this is the agenda for today. Really just two things on it. What's stopping us from managing our time? And then what are some things that we can do about it? So what are some things that we're able to do to be able to help us to manage our time better? So another really quick poll for you. What I'd like to know is, are you a good time manager? Do you manage your time well? All right. So lots of people saying sometimes. Yeah, I would have to agree too that my managing of time is usually sometimes. Trying to get better, but it's definitely for me a work in progress. So we'll see. And a few of you are good time managers, which is great. So perhaps you'll be able to share some of the tools that you use throughout this presentation. All right, so in the chat box, I'd like to know is, do you have enough time to do everything? And what happens when you run out of time? So I guess really what I want to know is what's working well and what's not working very well when we're looking at time management. Are there things that you always have time to do, or are there some things that you seem to never have time to do? Do things when they're set in a routine. Yeah. I find that's best as well. Oh, time management in school is hard. Cool. The most urgent things get done prior to this. It's been key to me. Right. I know the feeling, Jessica. I have a calendar at work, which I follow consistently and vigilantly. When we started working at home, I didn't bring my calendar home. So that definitely for me was one of those things, not having it. Low energy is my biggest problem due to illness. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah. I need to have checkpoints to ensure I don't miss deadlines. Yeah. Yeah. Reminders are very good. Scheduling for me, but difficult. Absolutely. I went into the office and picked up my calendar. I'm good now. Find out you have so much time that you end up putting things off. Sure. Procrastination is one of those things that really can sneak up on us and do some stuff. Saying no to requests can be hard. Less important items. Okay, so we're going to look at a lot of these things that you put in the checkbox. So I did put up a handout for you that we'll be using throughout today's presentation. So it's on managing time, looking at what's working, what's not working. So that gives you an opportunity to think about sort of what we just went through. What is working, what's not working, right? When we're talking about time management, we're really talking about mastering something. We have control over our time management. That's one of those things that we control, a stressor that we can control. So we can choose to take action and learn how to manage our time better, which many of you looking in the chat box have been doing, looking at scheduling and using a calendar and prioritizing. Those are all great things. Learning how to say no. Those are all really, really good things to help us to manage our time better and helping us to master it. It gives us that sense of control and really helps for us to experience less stress. But in order to really become efficient at time management, or to understand how we manage our time better, we first need to know what we're doing. How do we find the time to do what we want? It's going to take time to find time. We first need to know where we're spending our time. What are we doing? Where are we spending most of our time? What are the things that we're doing that are taking up a lot of our time? So Stephen Covey created in his book of the seven properties of highly effective people, he put together this grid and looks at where you're spending your time. So there are 4 quadrants where we tend to spend our time. The first quadrant, where things are important or urgent. There's 2 types of important and urgent activities. Ones that we can't foresee, and the others that we've left to the last minute. So the ones that we can't, Stephen Covey, Jessica. The 7 habits of highly influential people. That's not the right title, but it's close to that. So that first quadrant where things are urgent and important, effective people. Thank you, Maya. Those are the things that are urgent and important. So kitchen fire would be considered urgent and important. We have to look after that right away. A sick child, we need to look after that right away. Some of the things, though, might become urgent and important because I haven't looked after them before. Thank you, Peter. I knew somebody would know what it was. Right, so we have to be aware if we're spending a lot of time in this area. We spend a lot of time in this quadrant. What we tend to feel is highly stressed. This is extremely stressful quadrant to live in when we're always dealing with urgent and important items. The satisfaction level when we're able to accomplish them or mark them off our list or clear them up is really high as well, but extremely stressful. So high stress, high satisfaction area. We really try not to live in this quadrant very much. So the issues and crises can't always be foreseen or avoided and will require you to deal with them in a timely manner. So the next quadrant number 2, those are things that are urgent and not important. These are the things that stop. So, sorry, urgent and not important. This is quadrant 3. So these are the things that stop you from achieving your goals and prevent you from completing your work. Ask yourself if they can be delayed or if somebody else can do them. A common source of this is from other people. In fact, I would say the majority of the things that are in urgent, not important, are other people's emergencies. So it might be appropriate to say no or to encourage them to solve the problem themselves. Now, it's hard if this happens to be your 4-year-old coming up to you with a problem. But in this quadrant, what tends to happen for our level of satisfaction tends to give us really low satisfaction. We're not as satisfied when we're in this quadrant. If I'm continually solving problems for other people or solving other people's emergencies, I'm really not getting much satisfaction myself. The other thing too is I'm still pretty stressed because all these things are coming at me, and it seems to make me everything seems to have more urgency. So I'm feeling the pressure of having to do them. The next quadrant over, we're looking at non-urgent, not urgent, but important. These activities help you to achieve your personal and professional goals and to complete important work. So this quadrant is where we feel less stress, but a lot of satisfaction because we're ticking things off our to-do list. We're looking after our short and long-term goals. We're building relationships. We're looking after ourselves. It's a really good place to be if we can. And then the final quadrant number 4, those things that are not urgent and not important. We consider these things as activities that are distractions and should be avoided. Right, so not a lot of stress in this quadrant, except that you might be feeling guilty in here because you haven't been doing what you were supposed to be doing. And probably not a lot of satisfaction either where you're here. So just another quick poll. I'd like to know where you're spending your time. Which of those 4 quadrants do you spend most of your time? When we're thinking about right now during the COVID-19 crisis, where are we spending most of our time? Are we spending it in those things that are important and urgent, trying to put out those fires? Are we spending a lot of time in the not important but urgent, dealing with other people's fires? Are we doing those things that are important but not urgent? Or are we working a lot in that sort of quadrant number 4, those things that are not important and not really urgent? Where are we spending our time? It's nice to see that most people are spending their time in quadrant 2. That is really good to see. Because often when I do this in the workplace, many people say they spend a lot of time in quadrant 3, where they're doing the work of other people and finding that very, very stressful. So it's really nice to see that the majority of people are in quadrant 2, because that's where we feel the most satisfaction, when we're in that quadrant. All right, so let's look at some things that get in the way of us being productive at work. So what are some ways that get in your way since you've been working at home, perhaps? And I guess, Eve, this answers this question too, because when you're doing more with less, that does increase the workload. If you don't have all the tools that you had in your workplace, that makes it hard. Barking dogs outside the house, the spouse and the pets. Yeah. Having too much time, for sure. Not removing those distractions that are around you. Yeah. Meetings, check-ins. Kids. Your young children. Children at home are very distracting. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm really fortunate that I don't have a lot of distractions at home, just my husband, but it can be distracting because he thinks that I'm at home, so therefore not working. I have to constantly remind him that actually I am working. So not having co-workers so readily available for assistance. Yeah. Not being able to just, walk down the hallway and say, hey, I've got a question. Can you help me with this? It's extremely more difficult. And conference calls, can get in our way of being productive. So we're first going to look at canine children. Even cats, I hear, can be a problem. They tend to like to not having specific goals. Yeah. Cats tend to like to just plant themselves right in front of whatever you've decided you're going to be working on. That makes it difficult. So what we're going to look at to start off is we're going to look at distractions at work. And I think these distractions, even though the stats from here are from a workplace, I think that they are probably fairly similar to the distractions you are now finding yourself at home. So the average employee deals with about 70 distractions a day. And a typical manager can be interrupted nearly 6 times an hour, which is a lot of distractions and a lot of interruptions. So the impact of these distractions or at home or in the workplaces is they say that it takes about 23 minutes for a person to fully regain their focus after being distracted. So if I was working on a project and deep within my project and somebody came in and distracted me and started asking me a lot of questions, it takes me a while to be able to get back into that zone again, to be able to focus, fully focus on what I was doing before. And that wastes some of the time that we could be using. So distractions can be really impactful on what we're doing. So those interruptions. So let's look at some of those things that do distract us at work. Apparently, I may never be focused. Yeah, I understand that. I did the math for if a manager was distracted 6 times in an hour, that's 138 minutes or 2 hours and 18 minutes. So you're right. Never going to work. All right. So we let technology interrupt our daily lives, and that can be a huge distraction. And when we're working at home, we are really trusting technology for a lot of the information that we're getting. It's interesting to know that number-wise, nearly 71% of people will answer an instant message notification within 2 seconds of your phone beeping. As for emails, over 41% respond to an email that is only 15 seconds old. So when we get that little ding or see the message pop up at the bottom of our screen, we automatically look at that and then we lose focus, right? And we spend time either looking at that message, responding to that message, and then we have to come back to work with what we are working on now. So that can be a huge, it's so true. I know. That can be a huge disruption in our day and really sucking out some of that time that we want to be working on a project or focusing on a project. So smartphones. When sending off a text, do you stare at your phone waiting for a response? And then all you do for the next 5 or 10 minutes is sit and waste time waiting for the reply? This is just one example of how smartphones can drain our productivity. I don't know. I don't think they're very smart all the time. But it's true, we do. We will send a text off to somebody, we'll send a message off, and we'll wait for that reply. And I think when we used to use telephones, wired telephones, you would call somebody, you would leave a message, and then you would go back to work. Not necessarily waiting by the phone for them to answer. So one recent study showed that instantaneous smartphone messages were resulting in an increase in workplace errors. Anytime there was an interruption of nearly 4.5 seconds, workplace errors tripled. Yeah, I guess there is that expectation that you receive or send an immediate reply with a smartphone. Yeah, interesting. All right, so another distraction that we have, which many of you commented on, was loud colleagues or family. 63% of employers felt that noisy colleagues are the #1 distraction at work. And I'm going to assume that 100% of the people working at home are going to say that their family is the #1 distraction at home while they're trying to work. Everyone has to deal with a certain level of talking in the workplace or at home. Right? People are collaborating with others. I know, Danny. The math is weird. We all deal with certain levels of talking, like people collaborating with one another, they're seeking advice or offering opinions or trying to make work more interesting with idle chit chat. We all get distracted when a certain colleague or stops by to talk about sports or the news, etc. Most of us won't ask them to stop bothering us out of fear of being rude, but we will vent that frustration to others. We do that in the workplace a lot. Yeah, Office 2.0, if you're in the cubicles, that can make it really, really difficult to be able to focus when all those distractions are around you. Very, very hard. So then there's the myth of multitasking. The more divided attention we bring to our brain, the less productive we become. In a recent study from the University of Texas in Austin, employees in a work setting were monitored on how often they jumped from one activity to another. After only a few days, they discovered that each employee would jump from an activity every 3 minutes. Which is a lot of jumping back and forth and then needing that time to become refocused on what I'm doing. I'm losing some of that time, right? So spending 10 minutes working on one activity before changing to another might give you a better quality to your work than if I'm jumping back and forth between different activities. Are there good multitaskers out there? I'm with you, Eve. I can't do it. So some other things that get in our way of managing our time are things like procrastination, perfectionism, trying to please people. These all have an impact on our ability to manage our time. Are there other things out there that are time suckers from us that don't allow us to manage our time well? Is there something that I missed? Thinking about, sure, so that future planning. Yes, Jessica, if I've missed something that you want me to go over, please. Is there something that I missed that is distracting from your ability to manage your time? Okay. So what can you do? So I really like this quote. It says, you can do anything. You just can't do everything. And we have to remember that. So how do we spend less time at work, but still accomplish everything that you need? Netflix. Yes. Right. So thinking about that, how do you spend less time at work and still accomplish everything you need to do at the same time? All right. Prioritizing your workload. That is great. Do you do that first thing in the morning, Eve? Work at a timing that's good for me. Yeah, actually, I plan the day before. That's excellent. Yeah, I like that. Delegate or work at a timing that's good for me. For sure. I have to write it down. Yeah. So what we really need to do is yeah, you have to know what you can delegate for sure. It's all about creating that balance, about finding that balance that we have between our work and our home life, especially when we're working at home. We've got to find that balance because we're working in our space and our family's looking at us and going, well, you're home, so you must be available. And being able to let those people know that actually you need to do some work. So we need to maintain clear boundaries between our work life and our personal life. And that can be very, very hard. For sure, Eve. Yeah, we all have generals everywhere. Right? So trying to create those boundaries. I know it's difficult when your office happens to be the kitchen table or the dining room table and you're in the middle of this space with everybody else. If you can have a private space in order to work at, where you can close a door, maybe put a sign on the door saying work to let people know that that's the boundary for you. And when you come out of that, then you leave work in there. That work doesn't creep into the rest of your day. So if you can, turn off your phone. Don't check work messages after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Stop checking the email. Create some space where you can actually have a life outside of work. Make sure that you're still blocking time off. Is a number one priority for you. Perhaps it's having meals with your family every night, or just having some quiet time, or going out to exercise. Make sure that you block that time off and don't let anything or anyone else interfere with that time. So if you want to spend time with your quality time with your family and you don't want to be disturbed at work, then perhaps leaving a message on your cell phone letting people know that you're spending time with your family and that you'll be checking your messages afterwards and return phone calls. It's a little frustrating, hey, Carissa? Right, so if we go back to the 4 quadrants again and look at what we can do, we want to try and spend most of our time in quadrant 2, where it's less stress and high satisfaction. So if we find ourselves spending lots of time in quadrant 1 or some time, we need to manage these, right? Delegate them if we can. If your child comes to you and is feeling ill, if your spouse is there at home and able to help you, or your partner, then delegate that to them and allow them, and then check in with them after you've finished whatever you're working on. Right? In the important, not urgent, in quadrant number 2, we need to focus on strategies and values. We're looking at that big picture in that quadrant. Where do I want to go? What do I want to accomplish? In quadrant 3, we want to avoid these interruptions in busy work. Usually, again, as I said, it's not our emergency, and therefore we need to minimize our investment into that area. Right? So putting a sign on your door, using those noise canceling headphones so that people will see you. I've got these headphones on, that means do not disturb. So doing things like that to allow people to know that you're working now. and to help you to stay out of that quadrant. And quadrant 4, we want to limit our time here. I mean, this is where we escape, and it can be used to minimize stress. But if we're always in that quadrant, it's going to increase our stress, right? So we want to minimize our time in that one. We might want to use it as sort of a bundling thing. So maybe I work for a while and focus on stuff that's important to me. So spend time in quadrant 2 and then give myself a break where I can go to quadrant 4 for a while and maybe work on stuff. But then I would even say that doing that, you're still in quadrant 2. Because it's earned leisure time, not unearned leisure time, right? I've worked on this project for an hour. I'm going to take 10 minutes and I'm going to check up on Facebook or play the latest game or go play with the kids, whatever it is. Then that becomes also quadrant 2 information. Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you, Maya. Thanks, Megan. Perfect. All right. So this is an interesting infographic. I like this one. How to start your day. One of the things that you can do, especially if you're working from home, is let people know what your expectations or needs are for this particular day. Just telling them outright, this is what I need to focus on today. So I need this much time to be able to do it. And putting that out front clearly is really going to help other people understand what you're doing today. Right? So each one of these, they went out and asked people how they started their day. Highly successful people, how they started the day. And really interesting on what each person said. But it's all about, creating that routine that you can have. Right? So some people, Mark Twain talks about eating that frog, right? Taking the hardest thing that you need to do and doing that first. Tony Robbins talks about visualizing how you will make your day. What's it going to look like today? And that could be the process, maybe like as Eve does, where you're scheduling your day the night before. This is what it needs to look like. For Barack Obama, he works out first thing in the morning, right? To clear his head and to relieve the stress. For me, my workout in the morning, lately it's been just going out for a walk or a bike ride, allows me to help me to organize my day and figure out what I need to do when. Turning off your email. I know that's hard, but it's something that you can do, or at least turn off your notifications and then plan maybe 2 or 3 times a day when you can actually check your email. Craig Newmark talks about customer service to ensure that you're providing that good customer service. And then an interesting question that Steve Jobs looks at is, every morning I ask myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? Eve, maybe just turn off the phone. I don't know. Yeah, it really is hard when your superior really wants responses right away. But when you're thinking about working at home, what does your routine look like? Have you carved out sort of a set routine? For me, what it is, I get up in the morning, I go for my walk, I come back, I have some breakfast, make a cup of coffee, grab my water, and I head down to the basement where I've set up a small office in the spare room. And I work in here for probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and get some good work done. And then I take a coffee break like I would do if I was at work. And I get up and I move around and I do something for about 15 minutes just to give myself a break. Maybe get a snack, have an orange or something, and then I come back down and I work some more. Break for lunch, get up and do something. Then I probably work for another hour or so in the afternoon. Plan my day for the next day. See what I have coming. Check my email to make sure I haven't missed anything important. right? So if you can have a routine, I think it's not only better for you, but it's going to be better for the people that are around you to know this is what you can expect from me. This is what I'll be doing. So food for thought. All right, somebody talked about how it was difficult to say no. But when we say no, it helps with that distraction, that procrastination, that lack of focus, or that difficulty in setting our goals. So let's talk about saying no. Why don't we say no? Guilt, for sure. Don't want to disappoint others. I know. If I say no, I'm going to look mean or confrontational. So you say yes. Yeah, for sure, Jessica. Absolutely. Yeah, we're people pleasers, right? But when we say yes and we really want to say no, what we're doing is giving ourselves more stress. Yeah, sometimes my stress is self-inflicted. I know. When I really should be saying no to something and I say yes. So really what we need to do is look at taking care of our commitments first. Yeah, we're worried about the repercussions if I say no. What's going to happen if I say no? So, yeah. So Steve Jobs is really big about wanting to say no. And some helpful phrases for saying no is you might say something like, I can't give you the answer right now. Will you check back with me? Or I want to, but I'm unable to. Not able to commit right now. I really appreciate that you asked me, but I can't do it. I understand that you need my help, but I'm just not able to say yes to that. I'm so sorry. Or I'm going to say no for now. I'll let you know if something changes and I have the time to do it later. No, I can't do that, but here's what I can do for you. That's a really good one. That gives you time, eh, Karen? To start asking them to send me an email so I can do it when I have time, for sure. Yeah. And gives that separation about having to give an answer right away. Yeah, for sure. Right? And I know it's hard to say no to your boss, but I think if you lay out what actually is happening with you, what your circumstances are, that they will understand. And maybe you just turn around to them and say, I can do this if you want me to, but these are the other projects that you've given me or that are on my plate. So where's your priority? And send it back to them. Because we can't be all things to all people. So try maybe saying no to something not quite so painful so you can practice it. Something that you know would be easy to say no to. I can't do it at home. Sure. There you go. That will get you practice for when you get back to work. Right? So how do we tame technology? What are some things that we can do to tame that technology? Yeah, you tell me. All right. So some of the things that I do is I will actually turn off my cell phone. I turned off. I know. It is weird. I only got a cell phone 3 years ago. So yeah, put a timer on your apps for sure. From my own computer, from my desktop computer, what I've done is I've turned off my notifications for my email. So it doesn't pop up and tell me. Nice, Nicholas. That's awesome. Be careful because it will suck the lifeblood out of you. Yeah. But yeah, if you can turn off your notifications for your mail and set times when you're going to check it, you can let your boss know that if something is really important, call me, because I'm only checking my mail maybe at first thing in the morning, maybe around 10, then again at noon, or right after lunch, and then maybe, once or twice in the afternoon, and that's it. That's the only time I'm going to be checking. Right? So that gives you that time. My phone went through the wash. All right. That must feel wonderful. Yeah, we get so tied to that technology that not knowing is almost as bad as knowing too much. Yeah. Just try it. There are lots of people that talk about, even if it's just for an hour, to turn it off for just an hour, especially if you're working on a project or report that needs to be done. Just turn it off turn it off for that hour and see if you can spend an hour without your cell phone. Yeah, absolutely. It is more of an inconvenience for other people than it is for you, for sure. Absolutely. And I always figured if somebody really needed to get a hold of me, they could call me. See if you can refrain from, when you hear your phone beep to let you know, or ding to let you know that you've got a message, see if you can not look at it. Yeah, not having one, more of an inconvenience for others. I know. My children always used to complain they could not get a hold of me. I was fine with that. But yeah, see if you can delay the time that you respond to messages, or just turning it off for a little while is going to help you with your productivity. It might feel weird at first, but I think you'll get used to it. So turn off your notifications so it doesn't ding you. Eve, that might help. And then you won't have that feeling that I've got to look, I've got to check it. Right? Because you're right. You kind of get in the back of your head, and then that thought goes in your head. Oh, somebody sent me. I wonder what it was. Maybe I should check it. I'm not sure. Oh, do I look or not? So you're not focusing on your work anyway, so you might as well check it. But if you can put yourself in do not disturb mode while you're working, that could help too. And then you can look at that later. Okay. This is an infographic that talks about how to focus on some things. How to help you to be focused when you're working on something. So time yourself. Give yourself 20 minutes, 30 minutes to work on a project. And once that's done, once that time is done, stop, put it away, and come back to it again later if you want to, and then work on something else. Right? That's a really good trick to use if you are a perfectionist, because perfectionists tend to spend a lot of time working on something till it's overdone. So by setting yourself a time limit on it, you can get it done, leave it, come back again to it later if you want to, but move on to something else so that you're not spending your time on that. Can also probably help you with procrastination as well. Right? If you set a timer and say, I'm going to work 20 minutes on this and then I can do something else, that might help you. Right? We need to eat that frog, get it done, because we procrastinate on something instead of living in quadrant number 2, where we're doing those important things, but they're not urgent. They're all going to end up to be urgent eventually if I procrastinated over them. So I need to get them done. Tim Urban has a really good YouTube video on procrastination. It is excellent. If you've not seen it before, I highly recommend that you watch it. But he talks about procrastination and how we need to pay attention to why we're procrastinating and what we need to do. So if you've got some time, watch that one. So it's Tim Urban, and it's on procrastination. Easy to find on YouTube. It's a TED Talk. My kid is great at procrastinating, for sure. I think we all are. I think we all are very good at procrastinating. So, yeah, I was reading that too, and they said bring your pet with you. I'm thinking like maybe a cat. Sure. Maybe some fish might help me focus. But I don't know. My dog, if I had a dog, I think he would be stopping me from focusing. But I like some of the other stuff in this infographic, which is why I put it up. Right? So use calendars, use checklists. Look at that planning and prioritizing. If you've got a calendar, you know what's going to thank you very much. All right, so spending that time to figure out exactly what you want to, how you're going to manage that time, whether it's by using checklists that you get to scratch off when you get something done, prioritizing it, saying this is what needs to happen today. If I get this done, I'm going to be satisfied. This is the one thing I need to get off my list. And that's great too, right? Don't feel that you have to do everything on your list or everything that needs to be done, especially for working at home. It's much harder to get through those things that we need to get through from home than it would be in our office. First off, we're missing half of the things we need to get done. We have other distractions that are helping us. So be kind to yourself and let yourself know that it's okay not to finish everything. Okay, so before we get to this, I do have a video to show you. So this is from Harvard Business Review. I thought it was very appropriate.
Today, more and more people are getting the opportunity to work from home, which is great. But sometimes, like what's happening right now with the coronavirus, certain circumstances may actually force people to work from home. And while working from home does come with a lot of perks, you get to work in your pajamas, you have no commute, you get to hang out with your dog. I love you. It also does have some real challenges. Because there's less structure, you may actually work too much and focus too hard and get burned out.
What's the answer?
The second is actually kind of the opposite. It might just be hard to focus and get as much done as you really want to do. The key to overcoming both of these challenges is to set boundaries around your time and space. So when you're working, you're working. And when you're not working, you're not. Here's how. The first thing you're going to want to do is give yourself a dedicated workspace away from distraction, meaning away from the TV, away from any music or the kitchen. One thing that's really helpful is to be able to shut the door so that you're out of sight. The second thing you want to do is make a schedule and stick to it. And it may sound silly, but you actually want to pretend that you're not working from home. So get up as you normally would, pour yourself a cup of coffee, sit down with your computer. It's good practice to play out for yourself what's acceptable and not acceptable to do during office hours. So for example, when you're at work, you're not going to play with your dog or listen to music. So don't do them while you're at home actually focusing on your work. Finally, you're going to want to quit at quitting time. Even if you're in the middle of a project, put it down because it'll help you get jump started the next day. Do you want to get me sipping my coffee? Okay. The third thing you're going to want to do is set boundaries. The people or animals in your life are going to see you at home and think you're taking the day off, but that's not the case. Buddy, I need you to listen to me. I know what this looks like, but it's not what it seems. You're going to want to explain to them unapologetically that you're working from home. We'll go on a walk at lunch, we'll go to the park. And the more they see you around the house doing your thing, the more they're going to begin to understand that this is your time to focus. So at the end of the day, you might feel like you just didn't get enough done. This is pretty normal, and a lot of people feel this way when they work from home. That's why the last thing that's really important to do is celebrate your wins. Maybe you write them down and go over everything you did that day. These daily reminders are really good because they can create a virtuous cycle. And the next time you work from home, you might feel a little bit more focused and just like better about your day when it's over, because it's not easy.
Cute little video. Great ideas. Yeah. Celebrating wins. You need to do that. Yeah, I need to do that too. Need to be celebrating all those wins. And the only thing that I really didn't agree with her is she talked about not listening to music. And I listen to music a lot when I'm working because I find it helps me focus. It's usually not music usually instrumental music, or music that I'm not really paying attention. It's kind of playing in the background, kind of gets rid of some of that other distracting noises that I might hear that might get me to all of a sudden look around and go, hey, what was that? So helps me to do that. All right. So poll question. So do you feel that you can apply what you've learned today in your daily living? Would there have been something else that would have helped you better to apply this information? That's nice, Ben. Then you're focused on your work. All right, one last poll. How satisfied were you with the Demio platform? Okay, good. I think it's a platform we're going to be using a lot now, so it's nice to know that. So, what I'd like you to do is pick one or two of those things and see if you can implement them into your life. One or two of the things that we've talked about as far as time management, whether it's making a schedule, a checklist, whether it's dealing with distractions in your home, whether it's dealing with technology distractions. But the best time management strategy is going to be the one that you use. It's going to have nothing to do with ones that Diane tells you to use. It's going to be the one that you're actually going to be able to use. So, yeah, consider moving your office into another room. Absolutely. I was working upstairs. I moved down here, and it's been so much better, for sure. So if you have any other questions afterwards that you want to talk to me about, feel free to send me an email. That's my CFMWS email address. So please take the time if you have any other questions. Are there any questions about time management and what you need or can do? I really want my stuff. Yeah. Eve, I do the same thing. I've been trying really hard to keep the same schedule that I had while I was at work. So I'm up before my husband is, and I'm working before he starts moving around, which means I can get a lot of stuff done without anybody even knowing I'm doing anything. So yeah, for me, that's been really, really good. True. All right. Well, it's just about an hour now. Our time is up. So I want to thank everybody. Yeah, Danny, be kind to yourself. Absolutely. So thank you very much for joining us, and perhaps we will see each other later. Stay safe and enjoy your day. We can stay on if you want, Jessica. Yes, Ilana, I can do that for you. No problem. Everybody have a great day. Brendan, send me your email address. Just wait a few minutes, Jessica. There's still other people on the line. Yes, Annette. If you send me your email address to my email address, I will do that for you. No problem, Annette. What video is that one on YouTube, Danny? Oh, cool. I'll have to check that out. Nice. No problem, Danny. Thank you. Are there any other questions? I know Jessica's waiting to ask something. Still 2 people online. Jessica Basso, do you have a question for me as well? So Jessica McDougall, there's still another Jessica online. I'm more than happy to answer your question now if you want, or you can email me your question. Yeah, I'm not offended. Yeah, everything is all right. The other ones I'm more passionate about than this one, I guess. No, that's okay. Yeah, I'm doing okay. But yeah. Thank you very much for asking, for your concern. I appreciate it. Yeah, I will. Not a problem, Jessica. See you later.